From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
ICE telling the media how they want their immigration enforcement covered here in the Valley.
Plus, diabetes in Arizona, there's an app for that. The steps that Mayo Clinic and ASU are taking to help diabetics track their insulin, dieting, and exercise.
And it's been a wild week for Arizona weather. We'll recap the highlights from flooding to 2 tornadoes and tell you whether or not the monsoon even played a part.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Ellie Nakamoto-White.
And I'm Anthony Totri. Thanks for joining us. Earlier today, ICE invited media to discuss how they've been detaining undocumented immigrants at the border. I headed to the Department of Homeland Security to get an inside look at how they enforce their immigration laws. In discussions about the border and immigration, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office, more commonly known as ICE, is often seen in a bad light.
There's a lot of information out there that says that, we're the bad guys.
Earlier today, Albert Carter, a director with ICE, spoke about some misconceptions people have. Many of these were issued in a statement earlier this month. One misconception involves raids.
ICE does not conduct raids. We conduct targeted enforcement operations.
That means they do not do anything without probable cause. Another misconception is the use of warrants. But his main message?
The message is that we're human.
Carter added his team was greatly affected by the impact that enforcing the law had on the community. However, local activist Salvador Reza, a local pro-immigration activist, said he believes ICE is acting inhumanely.
Well, in the first place, separating a newly born from their, or 3-4-year-old from their parents, that's cruelty to begin with. That's not compassion.
Carter disagrees and says that the job ICE does is hard, but necessary.
But at the end of the day, we're doing our jobs, and we're doing it compassionately.
Arizona's Department of Transportation is making changes to its website after they say thieves began ordering copies of other people's driver's licenses before now. License holders could use ADOT's Service Arizona website to order a duplicate license and have it sent to any address. Now drivers must provide their license number to complete any transaction on the site. More than 160 Arizonans have been affected so far. New data from the U.S. Census Bureau shows Arizona is the fastest growing state in the nation. The state's population grew 2.2% in 2018. That's double the amount of growth from 2017. Neighbor states Idaho and Utah took second and third place. Almost 11% of adults living in Arizona have diabetes, or close to 600,000 adults. Diet, exercising, and insulin can help patients, but keeping track of all those things isn't always easy. But now there's an app for that, as Ricky Cornish reports.
The Mayo Clinic and Arizona State University recently teamed up on a research project that can help people with diabetes live a healthier lifestyle. Dr. Bithika Thompson and Maria Adela Grando partnered up to develop an innovative way for doctors to help patients manage their diabetes.
As a physician, it's very frustrating when I see a patient in clinic and they can't tell me what they ate for breakfast yesterday, let alone, remember 2 weeks ago.
Every patient is unique. No patient is managing their diabetes in the same way. So we wanted an app that gives us the data that we needed to take action.
The new app, called I Decide, allows patients to record what they're eating and drinking, as well as their daily exercise routines. Doctors can then access that data and prescribe appropriate treatments.
Creating an app where a patient in real time can tell me all that information, and I can make much more meaningful decisions on how to improve their care.
You can also take a photo of your food and upload it to the app to let your doctor know how you're doing.
We can actually see pictures of what the patients are eating. We can get a glimpse into what kind of exercise they're doing. I mean, things that we wouldn't understand necessarily otherwise.
With more information at their fingertips, physicians can create customized plans to fit the person's needs.
Patient and clinician can talk about it during the duration of the encounter. They can discuss about it, and they can personalize the education and the interventions.
Doctors and patients are currently testing out the app, but once it's complete, iDecide is expected to be free and widely available for everyone. In the control room, Ricky Cornish, Cronkite News.
Today saw another round of the youth climate strike around the world, as well as here in Arizona. Take a look at these images from ASU's main campus in Tempe, where students gathered to continue demanding action from world leaders on climate change. The worldwide protests held last week saw an estimated 4 million activists and advocates take to the streets, with many of these events led by high school students concerned about their futures.
Earlier this week, intense storms hit Arizona from the Colorado River all the way to the New Mexico state line. And here in the valley, some communities received nearly a third of their annual average rainfall.
And believe it or not, the storms had nothing to do with the monsoon. So what caused the skies to open up? Cronkite News reporter Jordan Evans explains it has all to do with what goes on 20,000 feet above us.
We actually have a tornado warning that is still in effect for at least, this is a storm that's tracking to the northeast. We are seeing a little bit of rotation begin to happen in this storm. Now we have to talk about dust.
This was the scene in our newsroom earlier this week. It all started Monday, before the sun came up, as severe storms took over the Phoenix metro. Storms flooded the East Valley. Then a tornado touched down in New River at noon. And soon after that, for Monday's drive home, hail and torrential rain pummeled most of the valley.
We saw this coming. Not necessarily a tornado, but we knew we're going to have a period of severe weather. So we saw this several days in advance, so we were able to prepare a little bit. We have 6 operational forecast stations here, and I would say Monday we probably had just about every one of them in use.
Waters is responsible for directing operations at the Phoenix office. He says this setup was not monsoonal. This was something else.
This is kind of what we would consider to be a transition event. So basically a bridge between the monsoon season, which is still ongoing. Being that this is kind of more of a transition event, every few years or so, we'll get some severe weather during that time.
So remember, our monsoon runs from June 15th all the way to September 30th. And our monsoon, it's driven by a big area of high pressure center parked over the Four Corners region. This not only pulls in moisture from the Gulf of California, but also from the Gulf of Mexico. And our topography here in Arizona allows those storms to initiate. Now, this setup was a little bit different because we had the rich moisture coming up from the south and a lot of it from rich tropical storm remnants, but we also had a big, deep Pacific trough coming from the northwest, and it parked itself over Yuma. This allowed some extra atmospheric dynamics to go on, which was the perfect setup to get severe thunderstorms across our state.
9 years ago, I believe, where we had some very severe weather at this time of the year, and we had 3-inch hail in Phoenix, and we had a tornado outbreak up by Flagstaff. So it's not unheard of, but it certainly is unusual, and it's been a very, very busy time for severe weather this week.
Busy is just one word to describe this week, but surprisingly, Phoenix Sky Harbor only picked up nearly 1/4 inch of rainfall, barely putting a dent in this year's deficit. It's meteorologists like Ken Waters that have put in countless hours to keep us informed and safe during all of this crazy weather. In Phoenix, Jordan Evans, Cronkite News.
The Trump administration sparking protests after setting the refugee acceptance cap at a historic low.
The protesters today calling the move a stain on America's reputation. We'll have the latest from our Washington, D.C. bureau next.
Plus, how technology is helping the visually impaired. We'll give you the details right after this.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
Cronkite Noticias is the Spanish-speaking division of Cronkite News, covering topics such as economics, education, sustainability, immigration, and border relations. Cronkite Noticias strives to serve the Spanish-speaking community in Arizona. Under the guidance of prominent Spanish-speaking professionals, students at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism develop content for our broadcast partner, Univision, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Explore Cronkite Noticias at cronkitenoticias.azpbs.org.
Stay in the know on the go. At Cronkite News, we work hard to report the facts and keep you updated, whether we're on set or on the scene.
Taking it from the studio to the field. So I'm here in South Phoenix.
In Phoenix, we're just a click away. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or find us online at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
The Trump administration said last night it will limit refugee admissions to the U.S. next year to 18,000 people. It's the lowest level in modern history and down sharply from the 100,000 refugees during the last year of the Obama administration. Less than 24 hours after the policy was announced, faith and refugee advocacy groups in Washington were out protesting the move. They called a stain on America's reputation as a beacon for refugees. There were no arrests or incidents during the march, which began at the White House and ended at the Trump International Hotel.
As Democrats and Republicans trade barbs over impeachment, new comments from President Donald Trump have sparked intense criticism.
The president referred to the whistleblower who reported his highly controversial phone call with the Ukrainian president as, quote, almost like a spy. He went on to insinuate the whistleblower should be punished for treason, including the death penalty.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi responded this morning.
I think what the president said goes beyond irresponsible. It's dangerous. Whistleblowers have an important role to play in revealing wrongdoing in our government.
Trump's call with Volodymyr Zelensky has strengthened calls to impeach the president among House Democrats.
As of today, 223 of them now support impeachment.
Arizona State Representative Noel Campbell unveiled a proposal yesterday that would double the state's gas tax from 18 cents to 36 cents. The Prescott Republican says current taxes are not enough to fund the state's infrastructure needs. The proposal is estimated to generate an additional $750 million in revenue, but faces several obstacles from other state representatives to Governor Doug Ducey.
Technology seems to be coming in handy with everything these days, even things you may not expect. Cronkite News reporter Andrew Christensen explains what it's doing for the visually impaired.
For general overview, blank, 1050 intermediate.
VoiceOver, one of the advances used by people with vision problems to help them with technology. The Arizona Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired teaches its students how to use assistive technology to help them brush up on their computer skills.
For computers, we have screen readers, which convert text to audible speech. And we have screen magnifiers that allow the user to control the size and the contrast of the display on the monitor.
The ACBVI also uses Braille assistive technology on laptops that students are able to practice on at home.
You know, they're not afraid to go into the interface of the software and be able to access the menu list or, vital information.
According to the National Federation of the Blind, Arizona is in the top 25% of the nation with the most amount of visually impaired people. The ACBVI is attempting to change that through its Desktop Support Technician program, which aims to help students work in IT-related fields.
If you think about your activities from the time you wake up in the morning till the time you go to bed at nighttime, it's like how many of those things would you be able to accomplish if you suddenly lost your vision? So we try and address whatever skills the individual needs in terms of accomplishing that.
There are also cooking lessons that teach students how to use talking appliances. Everyday skills that students say help them bond with fellow students.
It's one of the best parts about ACBVI to me is the social environment, because you get to be around, a lot of times people that are blind or visually impaired, including myself, don't get around other blind or visually impaired people enough.
Up ahead on Cronkite News, tourism is a great source of revenue for any city.
But how can local governments invite millions of visitors into their communities every year while staying environmentally conscious? We'll give you the city of Sedona's answer when we come back.
All of its children had come to the Mother Church of Country Music. It was almost like a badge of honor that you had to bring your culture with you to the table. That's why Bob Wills and his guys brought us Western music. That's why Hank Williams brought the South with him from honky tonks. Johnny Cash brought the black lamb dirt of Arkansas. Bill Monroe brought music out of Kentucky bluegrass music. Willie Nelson brought his poetry from Texas. Patsy Cline brought her heartache from Virginia. I mean, it was the most wonderful parade of sons and daughters of America that brought their hearts and their souls and their experiences, and it gave us a great era in country music.
Tourism is a huge part of Sedona's economy, but city leaders and residents have concerns that their home may be loved to death. This spring, the town adopted a tourism plan put together with input from businesses, tourists, and residents. Charisma Sandoval tells us more about this scenic city's plan to manage their popularity.
Towering red rocks, scenic views, and 3 million visitors a year. Sedona has become one of the most popular destinations for tourists in Arizona.
Because it feels like we've gotten a million miles away from the city just only by driving for a few hours. And then on top of it, the town still feels small, still feels friendly, still feels connected to nature. Even though all these people visit, it hasn't lost all the things that made it special over the years.
And keeping Sedona special is exactly what the city hopes to do by instituting a sustainable tourism plan. The plan aims to balance the small town needs of residents with a world-class experience for visitors, all while protecting the environment and economy.
Tourism generates 10,000 jobs. It generates 77% of all of our city's sales taxes, which pays for all of our services that we enjoy as residents. But sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect between the benefits of tourism and the pinch points of tourism.
Those pinch points include traffic, parking, overused trails, and noise. Jennifer Wesselhoff, president and CEO of the Sedona Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau, says the plan tries to take on these challenges without turning away the tourists the city relies on.
Tourism is the lifeblood of our community. It's the lifeblood of Sedona. And we want to make sure that we still can, manage the 10,000 jobs that are here that are relying on it.
Jim Allen has been bumping along the red rocks at the wheel of a Jeep as a tour guide for almost 25 years.
I think I have one of the best jobs in the world. It's play for me because I get to meet wonderful people from all the entire planet. I get to be outdoors every day out here in God's country driving a Jeep around.
Allen says he's noticed the increase of tourists both in town and in the large groups he takes out on his Jeep. And while he's happy about the increased business, he worries about the toll on trails. Allen supports the sustainable tourism plan because he knows without this view, his business dies. The plan hits the trails hard, with programs to monitor usage, limit trailhead parking, and promote less traveled trails. Allen works to educate people about picking up trash, staying on the trails, and respecting wildlife.
I would like my great-grandkids to be able to see this as it is, to preserve it that way.
Education is a big part of keeping Sedona beautiful. The Chamber developed a pledge for tourists that reminds them, among other things, to not make their own trails, eliminate those single-use plastics, and to pack in and pack out.
That will give visitors the opportunity to share with their fans and friends that they're responsible temporary locals, really, while they're here.
Protecting the environment is also why Kathleen Ventura is part of the committee that helped with the Sustainable Tourism Plan.
We all have to take a hard look at our carbon footprint and what we're doing here and our social responsibility and sustaining Sedona and all of its glory, for as long as we can.
Ventura says with more tourists comes more responsibility for everyone, businesses, residents, and tourists. A big part of that plan asks businesses to find a way to reduce waste and increase recycling. Ventura's company Compost Crowd collects food scraps from residents and businesses in the area before they make their way to landfills.
Before we started Compost Crowd last year, there was literally no composting options in all of Yavapai County.
Now there are 10 businesses signed up for Compost Crowd. Incentives to get more businesses to use programs like this and use less energy and conserve more water are included in the sustainable plan. The city's looking at positive reinforcement more than rules and regulations to get everybody to buy into the new program. Tourists we talked to say they're happy to comply.
And there is a balancing of wanting to tend to nature and then also the culture of this little community. So the influx of that is unique, and I think Sedona has to kind of continue to be outside the box to stay itself.
Especially if it means keeping the view.
All right, and as you just saw, Sedona's weather is beautiful, but Ricky, this rain this week in Phoenix, that was crazy.
This whole week was insane. I could not believe how much rain we got, but I have to talk about that video you took. Put me on the spot here. Oh my gosh, can we please have a listen to that?
Yeah, what you're hearing, guys, is literally the hail destroying my car and my wallet, not to mention my heart.
How's your car doing?
It's making it. It's recovering.
What I'm worried about is the windshield. Did that make it? Or
the windshield survived. The windshield survived, Ricky.
Well, as long as your windshield's recovering, what do we have in store for this next weekend?
We have so much in store this weekend. Thankfully, the weather has gotten a lot calmer and we can actually enjoy some nice temperatures outside. So that is such a relief. So let's talk about this evening plan that we have going on for you guys right now. As you can see, high of 85 at 5 p.m., which is super nice. And as the night goes on, we're looking at 78 at 10 p.m. What a relief. I am super excited. Now, as we see plans for tomorrow, the whole day is going to be nice. These are the temperatures we really have been waiting for. As you can see, a high of 91 at 4 p.m., but throughout the day, we're looking at high 80s. So let's talk about some activities that you guys can do this weekend while the temperatures are still nice outside. Let's look at the events this weekend. Starting up, we have Gold Rush Music Festival. That's in Chandler, Arizona. It actually starts today, and it's going the entire weekend. I'll be there, so if you see me, say hello. And then, of course, we also have the 6th Annual Garlic Festival. That's going to have such amazing food, and it's out in Queen Creek, Arizona, so go out with your family and friends and enjoy that. And finally, my favorite event this weekend is Tacotopia. You guys can actually ride a mechanical taco. I'm not kidding, and even dive into a pit of guacamole. Doesn't that just sound like a blast? I'm excited. Well, let's talk about the rest of the forecast for the 7-day. As we can see at the weekend, it's going to be 92 on Saturday, and the rest of the week, high 90s and high 80s, and low 90s. In the Weather Center, Ricky Cornish, Cronkite News.
After the break, a female football player at Skyline High School is turning heads. We tell you why her role is different on the field.
Welcome to another edition of Cronkite Sports Now. I'm Taylor Rocha. Let's talk sports.
For the latest on local sports and beyond, we've got you covered.
Let's do this thing.
We challenge reporters to go beyond, a game story. We want stories with depth.
It's just a crucial step from the college experience into the professional experience while you're still in school.
At Cronkite Sports Now, watch the journalists of tomorrow cover sports today.
One female high school athlete has already made history, becoming the first female Arizona State wrestling champion in her weight division earlier this year. But now she's being noticed for her work ethic as a member of the high school varsity football team. Reporter Serena Perez also learned more about why she didn't try out in the past.
Like any other high school football team, the Mesa Skyline Coyotes are working to improve their skills and conditioning. But what they have that most high schools don't? Icebox, the nickname given to their female running back, who is also the first AIA state champion in her weight division in the girls wrestling.
Julia has a work ethic that's unmatched. It's as good as anybody on this team. She comes to work, she works hard every day. She's one of the leaders in the weight room. She's one of the leaders on the field.
Julia Chambers has dedicated her life to sports, including wrestling, track and field, cross country, and now football. And she says in the past, she always had a feeling she wanted to try out for football, but it was other people's opinions that held her back.
There were some adults that were iffy about it, mostly for my safety, but there are some that are just against it. I still have some today that I have told that I'm in football and they just laugh at me, but I just deal with it, and it's like your opinion, and if I want to do it, I'm going to go do it.
Chambers first played football in the 6th grade and says there is also a lot of support behind her.
All the guys support me. Most of them I actually played with when I was in 6th grade.
Not only is the team helping her, but Coach George Hawthorne says she is also by their side.
Her impact on the team has been tremendous. She's forced some of the boys to have to pick it up a little bit. You know, when they watch her giving everything, then they have to decide I have to give a little bit more.
Hawthorne says girls have always shown interest in playing football and doesn't know if Chambers on the team will inspire more to come out, but he can't help feel inspired by her.
Her cheering section on a Friday night is pretty awesome. Every time she touches the ball or she's on the field, you know, people are cheering for her, and it's pretty inspiring to me. You know, I get goosebumps every time I hear it.
And yes, she has been hit hard. Her bell has been rung, but she still loves football. In Mesa, I'm Serena Perez, Cronkite News.
Skyline's varsity team will be taking on Westwood at 7 p.m. tonight.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. The state's congressional delegation takes sides in the impeachment effort against President Trump, and Cindy McCain criticizes both the state and national Republican parties.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next NewsHour, spreading their influence far and wide. In part 2 of our China series, we look at why China is building roads and infrastructure across more than 70 countries. Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.